And so today we are going to look at the biology of HIV/AIDS. Yeah. And that biology of HIV/AIDS, hapo ndo bado tuko na life cycle of HIV/AIDS. Yeah. So the biology of HIV/AIDS, what were social work. I remember explaining what happens when the virus enters the blood. Tulisema when the virus enters the blood, that is not the biology of HIV, how it duplicates itself. Tulisema when it enters the virus, when it enters the blood, inaingia kwa ina target which types of cells? Targets which types of cells? The CD4 cells and the macrophages, right? So when we said ikiingia kwa CD4 cells, what happens? In your notes, ikiingia kwa CD4 cells, yeah, tulisema each cell has got proteins that do what? That attract certain viruses. Sawa. So easy CD4 cells will attract HIV. The HIV virus is attracted by the proteins in the CD4 cell. Are we together? So it does what? It enters the membranes. Cell membranes are CD4 cells. Ikishaingia, what does it do? It uses, inatumia mechanisms that za hiyo cell. The mechanisms that CD4 cells uses to reproduce itself, kutengeneza new cells. HIV virus inachukua those mechanisms of that cell, then inatumia kujireproduce. Are we together? After reproducing itself, what does it do? It exits. Inatoka sasa either inaacha rapture the cell. You remember us, it's in your notes. It raptures the cell and then inatoka. Tukasema inaweza rapture ama kuna wakati pia kuna cells that are not damaged. So that's how CD4 cells are damaged by the virus. Because as the virus ikisha demultiply, ikisha use the mechanisms za hiyo cell to demultiply, it does not dwell there. Ina rapture, it exits, inatoka ndani hiyo cell, inaenda sasa ina spread. Tuko pamoja? Are we together? Have you seen those notes at your social work? Ziko hapo Tulisema some cells zinaachwa kama zime rapture. Kurapture ni kupasuka, zinakufa. Though kuna zingine pia they don't rapture, in exit too, but it does not rapture the cells. Are we together? Yeah. So what was nutrition? I don't know if you are there to kusoma vile HIV inaingia the life cycle, yeah. But tumesema CD, yeah. Hawakusoma? Tulisoma? Yes. Yeah? Nini? Nini hiyo? Life cycle. Ndio hiyo biology HIV yenye nimesema vile HIV inaingia kwa white blood cells. Ulikuwa tukisema na cells, macrophages na CD4 cells. Na hiyo yote process nime-explain. Yeah. So we learned about that. Unless kama hukukuwa class. So, what were nutrition? White blood cells ni zile cells ambazo zinasaidia kufight against infections. Sawa. Na hizi white blood cells kuna other groups za cells. Like we said, we have the CD4 cells, now we have macrophages and other cells. We also learned about CD8 cells, T cells, T helper cells. What was social work? If you are there, you can remember the T helper cells. But now the HIV virus targets these two cells, macrophages and the CD4 cells. Na tumesema inaingia kwa membrane ya cell, inaingia ndani ya hiyo cell. Yeah? The CD4 cells ina fight viruses, but instead of fighting the virus ya HIV inaingia inakuwa part and parcel of that cell. And then it uses the mechanisms of that cell to reproduce itself. After reproducing itself, it exits the cell. And then it infects others. So that is the biology of HIV. That's how it functions. Tuko pamoja. But again, we have a life cycle of HIV/AIDS. It's part and parcel of the biology of HIV/AIDS. Yeah. So these steps, they are the ones that are used in describing the life cycle and the biology of HIV/AIDS. Now for social work, we didn't go deep to explain to juju. So because it's not in your course option. So to explain to vile inaingia inajimultiply na ina rupture the cell. But again, for nutritionists, we have to go step by steps. These are steps that are used by the virus to enter the cell to reproduce na pia inatoka from that cell. So when we come to the life cycle of the virus first undergo the first stage. This cycle is also known as the infection cycle. Are we together? So it's the infection cycle, na pia inaitwa life cycle of HIV virus. Yeah. All the under biology of HIV. So the stages of HIV life cycle. The first stage is binding. Yeah. To bind. Tukisema bind something ni kushikanisha. Are we together? Sticking things together. So the first stage of virus, the first stage in the HIV virus life cycle is binding. Where does it bind itself to? Inajishikanisha na inajiattach wapi? So binding is the process of the virus attaching itself to the what? To the CD4 cell membrane. Are we together? Binding is the process of the HIV virus attaching itself to the CD4 cell membrane. Yeah. So, then after binding, we go to fusion. The second stage is fusion. What does fusion mean? Mnakumbuka biology, we learned about fusion, eh? So after the virus attaches itself to the CD4 cell, what happens? Yeah. The HIV virus fuses with the CD4 cell. Sawa. They fuse. It's like they mix up. They mix up. Zinakuwa kitu kimoja. Fusion makes two things. Yeah. They come together. See, that's what I had explained for social work. Yeah. Like in here, we didn't go step by step. We just discussed generally. So after binding, there is fusion. The second step is fusion, where the virus and the CD4 cell fuse, or they become one thing. Tuko pamoja mpaka hapo? Yeah. Then the third one, and after fusion, of course, after they fuse, after they become one thing, the HIV virus releases RNA and the enzymes. RNA and enzymes are the ones that are not used to reproduce the HIV itself. See, you know, every organism has got DNA, RNA on all these chromosomes and all these hormones that are used in reproduction. So when they fuse, the HIV viruses in a release nini, HIV enzyme, in a release HIV RNA. So after fusion, there is now reverse transcription. Yeah. So kwa fusion zisha join, the virus and the CD4 cell are now one and the same thing. The virus now has not started, they have just fused, they've become one thing, but the virus has not started doing what? Reproducing. So tumesema, nikielezea ya social work nilisema, once the virus enters the CD4 cell, it uses the mechanisms of the CD4 cell itself to reproduce other viruses. Tuko pamoja? So kwa reverse transcription, now the HIV enzyme yenye ilikuwa released during the fusion stage, ina convert that genetic material. The HIV RNA is now the genetic material. Nimesema tuko na DNA na tuko na RNA. Yeah. So that enzyme ina convert HIV RNA, yeah, into HIV DNA. Are we together? During the fusion, HIV will release how many things? Two things: HIV RNA and HIV enzyme. The next step, which is now reverse transcription, the enzyme that was produced by the HIV convert the RNA into the HIV DNA. Tuko pamoja? Yes. And then after that, after now we have the DNA, the ARNA has been converted into DNA. Now we have the HIV DNA. Now, ikisha ingia kwa DNA now, ishakuwa HIV DNA. Kuna kale kamahali, the nucleus of the CD4 cell where reproduction takes place. Tuko pamoja? Kwa nucleus ndio reproduction ya hiyo cell ina take place. So because the virus has been converted into a DNA, inaweza ingia kwa that area ya hiyo cell kwenye reproduction ina take place. Are we together? Tuko pamoja? Iliingia kwa membrane ya CD4 cell membrane. Si mnajua cell, mnakumbuka cell kwa biology ilikuwa na different parts. Kuna the outer parts of the cell na kuna the inner parts. Sawa sawa. So ishaingia kwa membranes, ishafuse, ishakuwa kitu moja, but again haijaingia mpaka wapi? Hapo kwa nucleus. So wakati the RNA has been transformed, it has now become HIV DNA, it enters the CD4 cell nucleus. Tuko pamoja? And then ikiingia kwa nucleus, pia CD4 cell has got its own, DNA because pia inajireproduce. Are we together? Each cell reproduces itself. So CD4 cell reproduces itself, reproduce other CD4 cells. So juu imeingia kwa nucleus, HIV ishapenya kwenye CD4 cell inajireproducia. So inachukua DNA, combine DNA ya CD4 cell, the HIV now DNA, combine na DNA ya CD4 cell. Are we together? What nutrition, are we together? Yes. So mellow the whole process. So HIV ishakuwa transformed from RNA to DNA, ishaingia kwa nucleus ya CD4 cell. Hapo kwa nucleus ya CD4 cell ndiko kuna DNA ya CD4 cell. Okay. So combine, ikishaingia HIV combine na CD4, inakuwa combine sasa DNA ya HIV na DNA ya CD4 cell zina combine. Ndo sasa in the next stage, which is integration. Sawa sawa. To integrate pia ni kuleta hii na kuleta hii kuziweka pamoja. Tuko pamoja? Fusion is where they met, they combined, they became one thing. Integration is now bringing this side na hii side unazileta pamoja. So hii DNA ya HIV na DNA ya CD4 cell zina integrate. Are we together? Yeah. So that's the explanation of integration. DNA HIV, the DNA HIV inakuwa integrated into the DNA of the host cell. The host cell is the CD4 cell. Are we together? The host cell yenye ina host the virus, and the host cell here is the CD4 cell. So the virus, the virus DNA inakuwa integrated into the DNA of CD4. So after integration, there is assembly. Yeah. So because DNA HIV na DNA ya CD4 cells integrate, of course now something new is formed. Sawa. Kuna kitu kipya kimetokea ama kimeumbika. Then now the new HIV, whatever has been formed, that is now the HIV, because DNA ikisha replicate tena inaenda to the other form. Ilikuwa ya RNA, so inarudi back kwa RNA. So after the fusion, after the integration of DNA, the virus DNA and the host cell DNA. Now HIV RNA is produced plus HIV what? Proteins. Tuko pamoja. So assembly kunakuwa na new RNA, HIV RNA and new HIV proteins which are made now by the host cell. Yeah. So they assemble in a move, they assemble. Now they are a bit immature, they are not so much mature. And then after assembling, there is budding, BUDDING. Yeah. So after zimejikusanya, they now get out of the host cell. They exit the CD4 cell. Hiyo ndo budding. Yeah. So the HIV virus, the immature HIV virus yenye imekuwa formed, it pushes itself out of the host cell, which is now the CD4 cell. And once it is outside the CD4 cell, the new HIV releases protease and HIV enzyme. Then hizi tena zinatengeneza hiyo RNA inakuwa HIV DNA. So it's a cycle, inaenda ikijirudia. Are we together? Yes. So first of all, inaingia inakuwa HIV RNA. HIV RNA inakuwa converted by the HIV enzyme inakuwa DNA. Sawa sawa. Inajikusanya tena, ina reproduce, inarudi to HIV RNA and na some proteins. So budding ndo wakati the virus ina exit from the host cell. I think that's what we had discussed with the social work. Only that now for nutrition we are following basic steps. Sawa sawa. Because it's the same cycle. Are we together? Umeona sasa tunasoma tu almost the same thing, eh? Hiyo binding hiyo hatuna, hiyo sisi hatukufaa kusoma. Yetu tuliandika juu. Uko na hizo notes za vile CD4 cells zinakuwa destroyed? You must have them. Ivy, do you have them? This is a CD4 macrophages functions. Kuna vile tuna describe how that virus enters the body in a rupture. Yes. Umeiona, hebu mwambieni kwa wapi after. Umeona tume-explain vile cell inaingia kwa membrane, yeah, inamezwa, tunasema inaengulf, the CD4 cell inameza, destroy, badala ya kuidestroy inaanza ina use the mechanisms of that cell to reproduce itself. Tuko pamoja? Yes. So but for them sasa wanaweka hizo steps. Sisi we didn't have to kusumbuka kusoma hizo steps, but if you want you can still have those steps. So it's the same. Actually we are learning the same thing. Ni vile yao sasa iko more defined, eh? Yes. So Jacinta, umeelewa? Umeelewa, eh? Ann, is it Ann? Wanaishi nikikuita Ann. It's Ann. Ni gani? Jacinta. Na wewe ndo unaita Jacinta. Dorothy. Yeah, so is everything okay? All right. So the next one yenye hatuko tumefanya ni gani? So ukiambiwa eleza the life cycle ya HIV unaweza eleza from binding, fusion, integration, assembling, and there are 5 stages actually, 7. There is binding, fusion, reverse transcription, there is integration, replication, assembly, and budding. Yeah. So which other topic did you understand well? Hiyo karatasi uliniandikia ni kidogo sana, hata niliweka sijui ilipotelea. Jacinta. The other topic was antiretroviral therapy. Yes. Yes. Those are 7 marks, 14. Okay, kama una state na explain, those are 14 marks. Mko na notes, si ndio? You have notes, eh? Soft copy notes. Nilikuwa nishawatumia zao kitambo. Hii si mko nazo, si mlikuwa mkiandika. Sitaki kuwapatia soft copy. Nisome hizo zenye nimeandika. Nisome kitabu. Bebe kitabu all over. Simpige picha. Piga picha. Sawa. Mnasoma. Kwa nini msome na simu ikihang? Na simu ikiibiwa? Anyway, nitawatumia. Niko kwa group eh? Na transmission sisi tulisema tumesoma ama? How is HIV transmitted? Biology of HIV siniyo tumesoma Jacinta sahi. Kwa biology of HIV tumeanza na meaning of terms. HIV virus mnajua? HIV virus HIV infection cycle. Hiyo ndo tumefanya sahi. So tumebaki na HIV transmission. Unataka turudie HIV transmission tena? Social work, ebu ambieni HIV transmission. How is HIV transmitted?
Exchange of body fluids such as semen, blood, and blood products. Sharing of sharp objects such as needles with an infected person. Through blood transfusion, getting blood from an infected person. From infected mother to baby, during childbirth, and breastfeeding. Healthcare setting workers are at higher risk of being infected with rooming staff of the living. HIV infected blood.
Good. Una swali Jacinta? Yeah. Hiyo pia tulisoma. Mlikuwa wapi? HIV disease development. Yeah. Kuna how many stages of HIV development? Kuna clinical stage 1, yenye pia tulisema inaitwa seroconversion. Yes. Kwani hii inasema ni Mary? Yes, na hiyo nayo inaitwa stages of HIV. Ni stages za kwenda wapi? Yes. Do not be, by the way, examiner anachezanga na words tu. Hizo stages, mnafikiria ni stages za HIV za kwenda wapi? Si ni za kudevelop. Because as we go, the sickness is becoming worse. Sindio? So the virus is una develop. Juu tulisema kuna the final stage of disease development yenye ni full blown. Yeah? Yani disease imejidevelop. Ni kama stages of, ukiuliza stages of cancer development. Sini hizo. Moving from better to worse. Hizo. Yeah. So those are now we have the WHO stages of HIV development. So the first one is clinical stage 1. Sawa. What are the characteristics of HIV clinical stage 1? Yeah, seroconversion. It is also known as seroconversion phase. It is a primary infection. Sindio? What are the symptoms there? Are there any symptoms? Yeah. Na kuna window period somewhere. Yeah. Seroconversion inamaanisha? What does seroconversion mean?
the point and time when a person HIV status converts from being HIV negative
to being HIV positive. Yeah. So zero conversion ile wakati ukipimwa because kuna window period ukipimwa the test will be negative. But zero conversion sasa ni hiyo period yenye test inaweza pimwa na upatikane uko positive. Then after that, the next development stage is clinical stage 2. It's also known as asymptomatic phase. We said it has no symptoms unless zile za kufura wapi, swollen glands. Are we together? Yes. Na kuna so hakuna sign ya hakuna any sign, hakuna any symptom, hakuna any sign ya kuonyesha the immune system is damaged. But again, tulisema even during this stage, someone can really transmit this disease without knowing. Tuko pamoja? Yes. Then after that we have clinical stage 3, which is known as symptomatic. Sindio? Symptomatic inamaanisha it has symptoms. And symptoms in clinical stage 3 include what? Yes. So the symptoms worsen. Sawa. Yes. Then we have clinical stage, which is known as AIDS stage. Sio ndo AIDS sasa. Because we said unaweza kuwa na HIV but you don't have AIDS. Yeah? Stage 4 is the full blown, eh? Yeah, but they are still under clinical stage 4 because the WHO iko na only 4 stages. Sawa. So AIDS na full blown zote ziko under clinical stage. They are actually characteristics of clinical stage 4. Tuko pamoja? Yes. So here we have full blown, we have acute AIDS phase. This is the last stage of HIV/AIDS development. Tuko pamoja? Yes. So hapa, of course, the CD4 cells are below 200 millimeters per cubic. Yeah. Now, mmelewa sasa disease development. Yes, those are the stages. So now ni vitu tu tulisoma pia sisi. Hakuna kitu so much difference. After that, Jacinta. Yes? Which one? Oh, antiretroviral therapy. Yeah. So what is ARV? Pia social work tulitaja kidogo. These are drugs used to do what? To either treat or prevent the spread of HIV. So at least kwa watu wa social work, not for social work, for nutrition, they are going a bit deeper, because we shall look at the classification of these ARVs and what they do. Yeah, so the whole treatment process ya HIV inaitwa ART. So kuna mahali utaona ART na kuna mahali utaona ARV. Sawa. Yeah. So ART means antiretroviral treatment or antiretroviral therapy. So hiyo ina combine madawa, ina combine exercises, ina combine counseling, ina combine nutrition, everything, every area of treatment. Ndio inaitwa ART. But ARVs now refer to the medicine. Sawa sawa. ARVs ina refer to the medicine. Yeah. Now, who should start medications for HIV? And what is the criteria for starting medications? What's the criteria for starting ARVs? Yeah. Akuwa amepimwa akapatikana kwa positive. But again, tulisema unaweza kuwa positive and CD4 cells zako they are intact. Are we together? So lazima akuwa amepimwa akapatikana kwa positive na akona maybe opportunistic infections. You remember opportunistic infections? Yeah. Na viral load ikwe juu, more than 500 copies. Na CD4 count is equal less than 350 or even less than 200. So zikisha kuwa hivyo, you are eligible to start the antiretroviral treatment. Yeah. Now, before mtu apewe ARVs, there are some factors that are considered, like side effects. Kuna mtu anaweza kunywa ARVs na zimuaffect. Sawa sawa. Even in normal medications, kuna mtu anaweza pewa type fulani ya dawa imuaffect, lakini akipewa another type. Like when malaria used to be there, we had malaria queen, we had yes. So kuna mwenye angepewa malaria queen imuaffect. So badala ya kupewa anapewa something else. Same case to ARVs. You look at the side effects, yeah. You look at other things. So we have types or classes of ARVs. Yeah. So the first type. So each type ama each class, kuna vile ina affect the virus. Sawa sawa. There is a way it affects the virus. There is a way it spikes the virus. So the first class, it's known as nucleoside reverse transcriptase. You have those notes, eh? Nucleoside reverse transcriptase. Yeah. So these ones, they are inhibitors. To inhibit ni kuzuia. Yeah. What is it? Oh, yeah, so social work yetu tulimaliza wa nutrition watu wangangane na nucleoside yao. So nucleoside reverse transcriptase inhibitors. Yeah. Tumesema inhibit, to inhibit is to block or kuzuia. Sawa sawa. So tumesema every class of these drugs kuna vile zina attack the virus kivyake. Yeah. Mnakumbuka ile stage yenye HIV inatoka from DNA to RNA or from RNA to DNA? Ndio sasa reproduce. So hii reverse transcriptase, there is that stage which is known as reverse transcription. Ile ya reverse, that stage. So this kind of ARV inazuia that stage. So it prevents the HIV virus from doing what? Yeah, from changing into RNA. It prevents HIV DNA from changing or converting to HIV. HIV inhibitor entry inhibitor prevent HIV virus from entering the cell. Then number 5, we have HIV integrase inhibitors. You remember that step in integration. Yeah. So integrase inhibitors in a block that process. Yeah. So it means it prevents HIV from inserting its genetic code into the human cells code during the life cycle. Integration phase tulisema ni wakati genetic ama DNA ya HIV ina integration na DNA ya CD4 cell. So ARV inaitwa integrase inhibitor ina block the DNA of the virus from integrating into the DNA of the CD4 cell. Kwa pamoja. So ndo uelewe ARVs vile zinawaka na uelewe classification. Lazima kwanza uelewe the life cycle of the biology of HIV. Are we together? Because ARV is acting towards blocking that specific process. So the first process is binding. The ARV that is used in blocking binding tumesema inaitwa aje? Entry inhibitors. Tuko pamoja? Yes. So Jacinta and Dorothy, are we together up to there? Yeah? Dorothy, Jacinta? You okay? Eh? So hapo tumechapa vitu ngapi according to your course outline? We have looked at meaning of terms. To define what is ART and what is ARV. Eh? Then introduction to antiretroviral drugs. Tumeangalia ni kina nani wanakuwa introduced to antiretroviral drugs, si ndio? Mode of action ni vile hizo ARVs zinafanya kazi. So you've looked into that. Then classification of antiretroviral drugs, we've looked at that. Eh? Now, tutaenda kwa side effects of antiretroviral drugs. Tuangalie interaction of antiretroviral drugs and other drugs na prep. Sawa sawa. Yes. Now, kuna mali explain hizo integrase inhibitors and all that. Eh? Yeah. Na kuna zingine niliongeza. Now, easy antiretroviral drugs, they react with other drugs. And that's why if you are taking ARVs, na maybe umeshikwa na ugonjwa ingine, malaria or typhoid, you must tell your doctor that you are taking ARVs. Ili zile madawa atakupea aone kama zinaendanisha na the kind of ARVs that you are taking. Sawa sawa. People also that are taking ARVs, they are requested not to take herbal medicine. Sawa sawa. Because herbal medicine pia inafanya nini? Ina interfere na with how ARVs are working in the body. Pamoja. Yeah. So other drugs zina interfere na the working of ARVs. What are the side effects of ARVs? We have short-term effects and we have long-term effects. Sawa. Yeah. So some of the side effects include headache, kuna nausea and vomiting, kuna diarrhea, kuna fatigue, difficulty sleeping, a dry mouth, a rash, dizziness, and pain. Then we have long-term. Those are short-term. Ile headache inaweza kuja na disappear. Diarrhea inaweza kuja once in a while na disappear. Then you have long-term effects, like depression. Kuna zile madawa ambazo zinaweza kupatia depression. Kuna pia diabetes. Kuna heart diseases. Yeah. We have insomnia. Insomnia is lack of sleep. We have kidney damage. We have liver damage. We have weak bones. Those are not long-term because they have to be treated. Lazima uchukue long-term treatment ndo upone. Ama now, how do we manage the side effects? Yeah. Managing the side effects, unaweza pewa za kurelieve dawa za kurelieve side effects. Kama ni headache unapewa Panadol na relieve headache. Ikikosekana kabisa nao wanaweza change maybe walikuwa anakupatia hizo integrase inhibitors, wanaweza change hiyo combination integrase inhibitors wakupatia entry inhibitors which has got a different combination. Are we together up to there? Yes. Now, what makes nini inafanya kukuwe na change ama mtu aache kutumia ARVs ama a change from one class to another? What causes the discontinuation or interruption of antiretroviral therapy? Yeah. So kunaweza kuwa kitu moja. Kuna what we call unanticipated interruptions of oral antiretroviral drugs. Because hizi drugs unazimeza. So unaweza kuwa na an infection or something that do not allow you to swallow them orally. Are we together? Yes. Tuseme umekuwa na like umekuwa na something that you can't take this medication, huwezi zimeza. Inaweza fanya ufanye nini? Uchinjiwe ama uachishwe for some time, but ukiwa unapewa, there is another way unaweza pewa hizo madawa without kuzimeza. Yeah. Another thing inaweza fanya uexchangewe hizo antiretroviral therapy ama uachane nazo for some time. It's when a patient experiences a severe or life-threatening toxicity to an antiretroviral agent. So tumesema hizi drugs ziko na side effects. So unaweza pata hii side effects, it's extreme. Kama ni diarrhea, you are diarrheaing. Unajua mtu akidiarrhea, you lose a lot of nutrients from the body. So this ARV is doing you more harm than good. Sawa. So unaweza achishwa waone kama ndio inafanya diarrhea, and then they change. Wanakupatia another classification. Yeah. Then we have interruption of long-acting antiretroviral drugs, and then we have changing treatment because it's not working. Not every treatment that will work because people are different. Yeah. So unaweza pata you are taking treatment, but instead of the viral load going down, it's going up. Now you are very religious in taking your medications. So that can also be another thing. Then changing treatment because of resistance. Resistance ni hiyo tu, mwili imekuwa resistant. Mwili imezoea hiyo dawa. Probably because you didn't follow instructions very well until mwili sasa ikazoea dawa. Sawa. So those are some of the things. Zingine nimerudia like changing treatment because of side effects, changing treatment because of drug interactions. Those are some of the things that nimerudia tu nika emphasize. Changing to a simpler treatment. There are some treatments that are very complicated. Yeah, maybe ziko na matembe mingi au matembe ni kubwa. So unaenda to a treatment that is simpler. Dorothy, are we okay to there? Jacinta? Yes. So which other one are going to be? Post-exposure prophylaxis. Post-exposure prophylaxis is PEP. It's given after one has been exposed to the HIV virus. Sawa. Yes. So what about PrEP? PrEP inaitwa pre-exposure prophylaxis. It is given before one gets exposed to the HIV virus. Yeah. Then we have PMTCT. I think that's another topic that we were to cover. Prevention from mother to child transmission. How do we prevent that? How do we prevent prevention from mother to child transmission? Yeah. By making sure that there is perinatal, there is prenatal clinics. The mother should go for prenatal clinics. Akuwe tested, sindio? Na kama kuna any, Jacinta, you are sleeping. Alafu ukuje useme ati kusoma. I can see you there. Toa hiyo mkono hapo uangalie huku. Yes? So, prevention from mother to child. Now, one of the ways of preventing the transmission of mother to child It's by insisting prenatal clinics where the mother is tested for HIV, and in case they test positive, severe actions are taken. Sawa sawa. Another way, it's by making sure that in case a pregnant mother they are maybe getting blood, transfusion of blood, that blood is well tested. Kwa pamoja. Yes. And then encouraging pregnant mothers also to give birth in hospitals. And also, mambo na breastfeeding. They should be taught on how to breastfeed and hygiene when it comes to breastfeeding. Yes. So, ni gani ingine? Nutrition and HIV. This is our last topic. Yeah? Nutrition and HIV. Kuna any other topic, Jacinta? So next week we shall look at nutrition and HIV. Sawa sawa. Watu wa social work mmehang mahali. Lakini these are the same things that we had actually done. So let's meet next week as we cover nutrition and HIV.